Hello, everyone, and welcome. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that this program is being recorded and will be available on our Facebook, YouTube, and website after today. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to kind of trickle in, and then we'll get started. I'll give it till 6:02 and then we'll get rolling. Okay, I think we'll get started, and I'm sure we'll have more people joining us as we go. So welcome everyone back to the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum's virtual lecture series, talking about race matters. Join the conversation. My name is Meredith Horsford. I'm the executive director of the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum. We are delighted to continue this lecture series. As many of you know and may have attended, we started this series last year in August of 2020, and it was so successful that we brought it back in February of this year. And then, of course, again, now in September. So thank you to those of you who have attended in the past, and thank you to our newcomers as well. This is a 5-week series that's centered around reestablishing sites in introducing an inclusive narrative to cultural and educational institutions. Each week, we will host a different speaker, or in this case, speakers, from various fields, including historic sites, art, archaeology, and preservation, followed by a question and answer session. One of the most important topics throughout history, and in recent years certainly, is the topic of race. Race influences our lives historically and in the present, which is the reason that we began this series last summer. We at the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum feel that it is important to have and to facilitate conversations about race, even though they can sometimes be challenging. Our goal for the series has been to encourage everyone to come together, learn from one another, and to continue the conversation. Before we get started, I'd like to just familiarize you with a few Zoom things before we get into the lecture tonight, just to make sure that all of your questions get answered. Please use the chat box, which I can see you're already using, to say hello to the other attendees and to ask Melissa, our Director of Development and Community Engagement, any technical assistance questions. During the lecture, if you have any questions for the speakers, please click the Q&A button and we will answer those questions either during the talk or more than likely at the end. I would like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. We feel strongly that our programming remains free of charge so that it is accessible to all. The response to this lecture series has been overwhelming, and there is clearly a need for us to talk more about the issues that divide us and the issues that unite us as Americans. As a small nonprofit organization, we rely on grants and donations to support these programs. This event is made possible by funding from the New York Community Trust. We are grateful for their contribution that has assisted us in the continued success of this series. This fall 2021 series is also sponsored by the Bowery Residents Committee, or BRC for short. We have worked closely with them and community members over the last year to bring awareness to the Inwood African Burial Ground that sits between 211th and 212th Streets on 10th Avenue in our community of Inwood. The potential new location for a BRC shelter for people experiencing homelessness. To learn more about BRC and their community efforts, head to the link in the chat. If you would like to make a donation to help us continue our community-focused programming, it is greatly appreciated. We are also selling 2 really great t-shirts, one of which highlights the names of the enslaved and free people that lived and worked at the farmhouse with their names on the front and say their names on the back. The second t-shirt, which we are kind of featuring for the first time tonight, actually features the artwork from the I Was Here team overlaid on an image of the Dyckman houses here in Inwood. You can scan the QR code on the screen with your smartphone. Melissa has also shared the links in the chat. A purchase helps support our cause and furthers research and educational programming on the topic of enslaved and free people highlighted on the t-shirt, as well as our partnership with the I Was Here team. Tonight, we are joined by 5 members of the I Was Here team. They are Marjorie Guyon, artist for I Was Here, who was born in New York City. Guyon's work and public projects appear in public and private collections across the United States. And in 2009, she began a pivot into public projects, moving from the private space of the gallery, museum, and university to create on-the-street museums and public spaces. Marshall Fields is the community liaison for I Was Here. Marshall has spent the last 20 years working in learning and development. He serves as a communication broker through corporate training, a magazine columnist, podcast host, and community liaison for an award-winning spirit project, I Was Here. Patrick J. Mitchell is the photographer for I Was Here. Mitchell is an international award-winning photojournalist from New York City, actually Inwood. He has been published in several books and articles documenting present-day life and using human emotion to tell life stories with his images. Michael Baer, president and owner of Fusion Corp and Pivot, created the augmented reality for I Was Here. Baer's work focuses on areas of creative design, web application development, and creating immersive experiences utilizing augmented reality. And finally, Barry Darnell Burton, Ancestor Spirit Portrait model, installations, and writer for I Was Here. Burton is a resident of Lexington, Kentucky, where his family has traced roots back to 1840, before which there is no information. So tonight you will hear about the I Was Here project, created by photographing contemporary African Americans as archetypal ancestor spirits. The portraits invoke the human family: man, woman, child, mother, father, sister, brother. These emblematic ancestor spirit portraits ask us to examine who we are to each other, who we are as a nation, and how we can work to heal the wound that enslavement created in our citizenship. The project is a synthesis of history, image, geography, and soundscape, creating an opportunity for citizens of all ages to come face to face and heart to heart with a spiritual history rarely, if ever, encountered on the streets of America. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the I Was Here team, presenting I Was Here, Reshaping the American Commemorative Landscape.
Thank you so much, Meredith. And on behalf of the I Was Here team, I wish to thank the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum and all of those who support them. In this presentation, we will take you through the history of the project, what we're doing now, and what's to come. The mission of this project is to reshape the American commemorative landscape. And we see small history museums like the Dyckman Farmhouse as natural partners. To repair the wound that enslavement created, it will take all of us. We are excited to see our partnership take flight within the Inwood community.
I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathe in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers.
Where do I begin? How do I find my way home? How do I understand a language I have never been taught? Battered and bruised, but never broken. Jesus and his crown of thorns to bear the sins of man. For the Spirit is real and it dwells within me. I have no fear of you ever leaving me. Lord, what will you have me do? I stand here today to bless the ground that my ancestors stood on. Like sheep to the slaughter, their blood, sweat, and tears, the ground where they stood and cried, I stand in this brokenness. I am calling your name.
My studio is in the heart of downtown Lexington, Kentucky. It overlooks the largest auction block for the enslaved, west of the Alleghenies. The project began November 9th, 2016. I had spent a good part of the night before talking with my daughter about America. The next day, the daughter of another mother came up to my studio to talk about America. How could we shift the spirit of the country? I've spent my life as an artist. I believe in the muscular and sacred power of art. As I listened to this daughter, I looked out the window over her shoulder. As clear as day, I had a vision of an African mother and child appearing and disappearing. I told her what I saw. She brought her little boy to the studio. The project began with a mother and child. That vision quickly became a broader, deeper, bigger portrait of the human family. There are so many stories we could tell you about the making of the project. Photographer Patrick Mitchell and I, the day before the photo shoot, trying to decide how we would make the women look timeless, how we came up with the idea of shawls, and how in the photo shoot, everyone ended up wearing a shawl, a protection from what we were asking them to conjure, a shelter. Contemporary African Americans became a living embodiment of those who had come before them. From this photo shoot were born 21 Ancestor Spirit Portraits. Initially installed as translucent tapestries and windows of public spaces, they create a visual for an invisible history. Memorial, guardian, unnamed, unknown, powerful, and holy. Through longitude and latitude embodied into the images, the project is a geography and history lesson. But in the end, it is a spirit project, an iconography of beauty, dignity, and grace in historically significant public space. The project is a synthesis of what is known and what will never be known, what is lost forever. This combination acts to revoke a mythology created to keep a broken citizenship in place.
Mother and child, father and child, brother and sister, a set of iconic ancestor spirits that give form to our invisible American history. There is no geography across the country where these ancestor spirit portraits could not find a home. But we've spent the winter and spring learning about Inwood and are excited to show what we found, to share what we found with you.
It is easy for history to be reduced to a regurgitation of negative moments and occurrences we'd rather forget. This is an illusion that hides the truth and the lessons that it contains. Much like a person may recall the history of their family, recounting both proud and reflective memories, we have an opportunity to reflect on who we were, answering questions about who we are, and providing insight into who we could be. So I must ask myself, what is an ancestor spirit? But I should probably talk to one of the elders on our team. Barry, can you answer that question for us?
I'm sorry I forgot to unmute. I was already into appreciate you. Thank you. What is an ancestral spirit? An ancestral spirit is that light in your heart that compels you to keep going when you have no strength left. An ancestral spirit is that voice in your ear that you know not from where it comes, but it gives you the answer that you were looking for. An ancestral spirit is that strength you find to fight back against insurmountable odds and come out on top. An ancestral spirit is that thing that guides you through the night, that leads you to the safest place that you could ever imagine yourself to be. That is an ancestral spirit.
There is a geography of pain hidden in plain sight across the streets of our country. Like an illness that is felt but undiagnosed, we must reveal the past to heal the present and most definitely to protect the future.
The opportunity to create a visual for this invisible history is one that is uniquely possible for historic house museums. The role that we can play across the national landscape is powerful. The I Was Here project allows for both physical and virtual experiences. The physical installations signify the power of these ancestor spirits in our presence, whereas the virtual installations through augmented reality give us the ability to transform entire buildings and surround our existence with this history. Even in the event of a closed facility, after hours, special events, or due to COVID restrictions, we can still maintain the influence of our mission.
Hi, my name is Patrick Mitchell. I'm the photographer with I Was Here. And when I was approached for the project with the idea that ancestral spirit images would be surrounding the courthouse on Cheapside, where people were bought and sold, it was phenomenal. And I just knew it was going to be a healing to souls who were bought and sold, who lived through that trauma, and who know about it today.
I Was Here gives us an opportunity to share our history in an honest and poignant way, and to allow us to join with fellow citizens, our guests, even strangers, in a way that unites us through a shared citizenship.
The Ancestor Spirit Portraits are a synthesis of photographic image, painting, geography, history, and poetic language. Embedded into these images are longitude and latitude from around the world, connecting viewers to the broader connections of the wound that enslavement created. So I am honored and privileged to get to share some words from our musical director and producer, Dr. Michael Priestley. And so I'm going to do my best to bring it as he would. But he would say to you now, let's talk about music. It is common for someone to say, I see how you feel. Words can convey feelings from the mouth to the mind, but music can convey feelings from the ear to the heart. Music has an effect on people from all walks of life and serves as a universal language. It has the power to change lives, evoke emotion, and bring understanding where there is confusion.
So the question becomes, how can we change the historical landscape and give justice to this monumental narrative? Other than change the physical buildings, we use augmented reality to tell this story. We install the most cutting-edge technology to change the perspective of a city's landscape. With AR, there are no limitations or boundaries as to what we can accomplish and where we can take our mission. Through the I Was Here app, we utilize that same latitude, longitude. We use visual, larger-than-life spirit portraits and beautifully crafted music. We can effectively touch all senses and initiate true emotion, an emotion that is so desperately needed to transform our literal reality.
When I first got involved in this spirit-driven project, I knew we were going to go global, but I never imagined it would take me back home. This is the Dyckman Farmhouse with some of my babies on it. That's Broadway, and I can see the last stop on the A train. Around the corner and right up the street is Inwood Park, where I played Little League Baseball. I went to school on Academy Street, and about 4 New York blocks from there is the 207th Street stop on the 1 train in the beginning of the Dyckman houses. Footprints are not only left in the sand, but wherever you may tread. Although past prints are not as visible, they are present and there for us to feel, see, and learn. I Was Here is that lesson. The bridge that connects my footprints between my living in the city of the largest slave trade in the region and growing up in Inwood is my mother. She is from Lexington and has a lot of family there that love and care for me, just like I have family and friends in Inwood that do the like. It would be a milestone to have the spirit of I Was Here to go full circle and bring my footsteps back home.
How do we bless this land? This land that has not blessed us. This land that brought our ancestors here as a commodity. This land that we have fought for. This land that we have died for. This land that has dropped bombs on us on its own soil. This land that refused to give us equal rights as a people. This land that refuses to let us as descendants of an enslaved people the right to grow and prosper on equal scale as all free people of America. So to this I say, when you ask, how do we bless this land? I say, what is it as a people that we have not done to bless this land? Amen.
At its best, art brings form to spirit. And once given form, spirit moves on its own. Calling out to all who have the ears to hear, we are powerful beyond belief if we are united. This building in Lexington, Kentucky stands facing the auction site. These physical locations are wound sites we need to acknowledge and heal. For the wound that was created by enslavement has etched the soul of America. We were invited to bring the project to Clark County, Kentucky. This is the 3rd floor of the Winchester Sun building, facing the back of the Clark County Courthouse. The Winchester Sun building is empty on the 2nd and 3rd floor. Today, the building is a relic from another time.
The Winchester Sun installation, a large job in a small town in America. Like so many other small towns in America, your refusal to be like a tree and being in the wind when the winds of change are blowing. America, this resistance to hear and listen to the voices of the ancestral spirits will surely bring your kingdom crashing down around your very ears. The time is now. Amen.
We gave a presentation sponsored by the Kentucky Arts Council and Kentucky Historical Society. Our very first call was from Sister Eleanor Craig from the Sisters of Loretto in Springfield, Kentucky. It turns out that the Jesuits brought enslaved people when they came to Kentucky. The Sisters of Loretto and the Dominican nuns have requested a permanent installation of Ancestor Spirit Portraits. Loretto will be holding a sanctification ceremony in November, bringing the project to their mother house, as well as across the world from California to Pakistan. The Dominican nuns are utilizing the project as a keynote in their 200-year celebration in 2022.
This is the historic Octagon Museum in Washington, D.C., a block away from the nation's capital. Alongside it are some of the words from Marcy Reed, Executive Director of the Architects Foundation. Meredith, I would like to ask you a question. As the director of the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum, how can you, as a history museum, use I Was Here to share the history of America and create a vision for shared citizenship?
Well, I think that we as historic house museum leaders really operate sites that are in many ways like community centers. And so for us at the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum, we really offer the museum as a community space through which art can create pathways to introduce topics such as this, which ultimately has created a closer connection between us as an organization and the members of our community that we're here to serve. So we're very excited to partner with you folks at I Was Here and to see how this relationship will evolve in ways to explore inward outside of the walls of our museum through the virtual reality experience, which is obviously a great time now that most people are home for who knows how long.
Valid point. Thank you for sharing.
So in order to bring this history to the forefront, we built the I Was Here app, which houses all of the I Was Here locations. Through the use of augmented reality, we create and install virtual experiences without any limitations. The individual technologies running behind the app, as I mentioned earlier, include latitude, longitude, wayfinding. It notifies users of virtual markers, which give the experiences where the experiences are. It also uses the device's GPS to deliver content. When we use smart image recognition, which gives us the ability to overlay images, videos, and song over giant building and bring murals to life. With these AR experiences, we can position our narrative everywhere to effectively bring whole communities together across neighborhoods, countries, and even the world.
Please continue, Michael.
This video is an example of the AR experience at the National American Institute of Architects headquartered in Washington, D.C. As Marshall mentioned, just blocks from the White House and the Smithsonian, the entrance that you're looking at now to the AIA building faces the back of the Octagon Museum. The Octagon has traditionally and always been a symbol of power and influence in D.C., also built by enslaved workers for Virginia's wealthiest plantation family. So this exhibit gives the true meaning and purpose to the message of I Was Here.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as a listening melody. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea.
Sports stadiums are a place where we get to see who we could be. The stadium is a place where people who normally wouldn't even speak to one another or even offer eye contact experience the emotion of cheering in unison for a team with a shared loyalty. Our citizenship, if shared, can become a team that we all support in the stadium of life. Our musical producer and director, Dr. Michael Priestley, in collaboration with Ron Wilbur, arranged a blended anthem. We premiered this anthem for the first time on June 26th this year, about 2 months ago, at the Lexington Legends ball game, and it was received with thunderous applause, tears, and a renewed sense of pride in our country. It is in these bold steps that we express our shared citizenship and we reshape the commemorative landscape of America. So as we reshape, in that process, we've actually heard tangible evidence to indicate our impact. Patrons have said, I feel safe. I am welcomed in this space. I can enter this space.
The preservation of history is not necessarily the preservation of our history. However, it is the preservation of America's history. So that is why it is very important to tell the whole history from both sides, so that you will have a clear and equal story of America and its history from its conception until now. The complete history of America is the only way to preserve its history. Amen.
This is Dykeman, where I grew up. I have hop, skipped, and jumped past these locations for years, never taking into account the footprint before me, never knowing that the projects I grew up in started off as a stadium that housed a team for the Negro Leagues, the New York Cubans. The elevated train that I took every day that ran past my 7th floor window just 200 yards away was erected in 1932. And one of the schools I played in was an African burial ground before it was a learning institution. I went to St. Matthew's in the 8th grade, which is in Inwood. I got on the basketball team. It was around the corner from Good Shepherd. When we played them, we had to pass the Dykeman house to get there. I would have to go past there if I needed to catch the A train. I always thought, as a kid, who lives here? One of the great things about augmented reality is it will arouse curiosity in the minds of the pedestrian and makes them ask the question, what was here? In life, we don't always have a prompt for learning, and I Was Here gives that prompt. They say history is told by the winners. Don't let them win. Learn, and don't let it repeat itself. As a kid, I appreciated the concrete playground, but was blind to the fact that this area was sacred ground. Although there is a car service station and a school on this landscape, the Ancestor Spirits are calling us to bring vitality back to this area. As love of self increases, this insurgence of hate needs to stop.
One of the fundamental ideas of this project is to bring the arts and the humanities out of the museum, the gallery, and onto the streets where the public gathers. The role of water is key. We would like to bring the project to waterfronts across the country, accompanied by a soundscape and choreography, using the arts to tell the story of America on the streets and waterways of America. What's so interesting about Inwood is that you are bordered on either side by rivers, the East River and the Hudson River. We're very excited to bring these rivers into the project.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, Sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
We can form an arc from the past to the future, but we've got to re-envision and re-see. There is establishments that are meant to serve the public. They go by the names of schoolhouse, White House, courthouse. They all end in house, which is a place meant for welcoming. What is a house? What is a home? The opportunity to create a new visual for this invisible history is one that is uniquely possible for historic house museums. I Was Here is a visual manifestation of humanity. Our very citizenship and how we share it is contingent upon our ability to see one another. It is a window of opportunity to focus on the spirit of a nation that connects us. A vision of America can be seen when children of different races play together. It is the same spirit that walked along the Trail of Tears. It is the same spirit that was sold on auction blocks. It is the same spirit that I Was Here represents when you can see yourself in your fellow citizens who may not look like you or have your past. But our citizenship, our future, is ours to share.
Make a wish on me, America. I'm a twinkling star. You can make a wish on me, America. America, you tried to destroy the ground where I could grow and prosper and conjure on my own. I was here. Here I am out of nothing, conjured up out of nothing. I want the whole world to see. My twinkling star is shining brighter than ever. Make a wish on me, America. Protect me from the evil that tries to extinguish my light. See me shine. America, you try to destroy the very essence that makes me who I am. But here I am out of nothing. I was here. Make a wish on me, America.
The heat of a forest fire creates a condition. There are certain seeds which can only be triggered by extreme heat to break open and grow. In today's conditions, at this time in our world and in our country, I Was Here is a seed opening.
Buried in the birth of a nation is the brokenness of our citizenship. I am calling your name is a phrase repeated throughout the prayer that Barry wrote for our project. There is a challenge to overcome the chains of the past. If we can learn to share and talk about our past, our citizenship has a spirit of its own. It can be shifted. It can be shared. By this, we can commemorate a new American landscape of unity. I want to thank everyone for the time that you have allowed us to share with you, as well as the information that you've allowed us to share. Here's our contact information, as well as the I Was Here website. We invite you to work with us to reshape Inwood and our country, and furthermore, our world. Thank you all.
Thank you all. I'd love to give people the opportunity to put their questions in the Q&A box at the bottom. so that we can field them to our lovely guests tonight. I'm going to get started with one. Marjorie, I believe it was you who mentioned that you'd like to bring this project to waterways across the country, and you talked about Inwood and our access to waterways. Why do you feel like that is so important?
Well, when you think about how people were transported throughout the country and from Africa to America and throughout the world, the same way that there's a hidden history on the ground, there's also a hidden history in the water. And it was about a year, maybe 2 years ago, I was talking with Robert Curran, who is the director of the Louisville Ballet, and Barry and I and Robert Curran were in Louisville looking at the Ohio River. And we started talking about a project called a River Walk on Water that could be shown through AR, and all the different roles that rivers and water have played. I think this would be a way to bring dance into the project. We already have music, and the idea of Jesus walking on water, the idea of what happened to people who were transported by water, and also how water provided a way to freedom. I think that just on the land and on the sea are equally important.
Thank you. We have another question here, which says, how are you representing the Native Americans who were there even before the enslaved people that you have depicted?
I love that question because it lets us know that there are conscious minds out there wanting to consider the full spectrum of people who need representation. Here's what I'll tell you. In this project, we represent, from a visual perspective, contemporary African Americans representing archetypal ancestors as far as the Ancestor Spirit Portraits. But those souls are not disconnected from any others who have endured any form of hardship. In fact, they represent all suffering of humanity. The more that we can learn to see ourselves in people who do not look like us or come from our backgrounds, but recognize the humanity therein, then we can connect that level of empathy to all who struggle. So I will say that although visually they are not represented, spiritually, empathetically, they are.
Thank you. Another question that is posed here by some friends, which is it only people with the app who will get to know the context and see these wonderful images, or is there an opportunity for passersby to enter into this kind of view or not?
Is that a Michael Baer answer?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the hope is both. The goal is to bring this to as many people as we possibly can. And so with the physical installations inside museums, as far as we are allowed to take that, we will certainly. So the physical presence will be there. And then if there are limitations, or if we want to scale to a certain degree that physically we cannot, that's when the virtual and the AR comes through in the application.
And really, I think that this is something where the Dyckman Farmhouse Museum can work with people in the community. And when we had talked about posters, and we had in different shops that show images, there's a lot of ways that these images can be introduced into the community beyond using the app.
And this is something that we're trying to figure out what all the ways are that will continue to work together beyond the visuals that we've been sharing on our social media, and kind of what the things that Michael has spoken about in terms of AR. Another question I have here is, what is the American commemorative landscape that needs to be reshaped? That's something you spoke a lot about.
I'll take that one. So when you think about what you see, and not only what you see, but what you feel, and what has historically been handed down from generation to generation, that begins to paint the picture of the commemorative landscape. And so something that's common, because I'm big on neuro association, talking about something that is known and comparing it to something that's unknown. I think everyone on this Zoom has heard of commemorative plates, right? Commemorative plates, spoons, coins. What's the purpose? So you can remember, so that you'll have something to hold on to. And if we look at the past and the way that it has been represented, and we look at the current and the divisiveness, which is a direct result from the past, then there's a commemoration of things that need to be reshaped. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. Our next question is, can these images seem somewhat creepy to casual passersby who don't know kind of what's going on? How do you avoid the images being intrusive?
I have no intention of being a question hog, but I've got to take this one as well. So, and please, if anybody else wants to hop in, just let me know. But I love that question because it calls forth a recognition of how other people may perceive things. And so what's interesting about that is when we first debuted at the Carnegie Center for Literacy and Learning, one of the patrons who had came by said that they had seen one of the, oh, I'm a model. If anybody didn't know, I'm one of the models in the project. Probably should say that because my hair is totally different now, but they said they had seen my image in one of the Ancestor Spirit Portraits and thought that I just looked mean and mad. And then when they saw me in person, they said, here's this beautiful black man, their words, not mine. Here's this beautiful black man, big dimples and smiling and nice. We often have a frame through which we see the world, and we cannot control how everyone's perception is. But I think at the heart of the project is giving the opportunity for that shift in perspective, so that when you see my image, you do not see something that's creeping. You see something that is powerful or dignified. You see someone who feels no need to bow down. And that's okay, because they're not asking you to bow down either. So that feeling of creepiness, there may be people that feel that way, but it's offering an opportunity to change that perspective.
Thank you. The next question is, are you continuing to make additional portraits?
No.
Easy answer.
That's tiny. What we have is, what we intend with these spirit portraits is an iconic set of images that exemplify man, woman, father, mother, sister, brother, husband, wife. And so although there's 21 original pieces, because of the different ability that we have to manipulate them digitally, they appear to be different in depending on their circumstances. But basically, what we have is what we have.
Thank you. One more question I have here. How do you plan to bring this knowledge to more people across the country?
If I can tell you right now, if someone on the team wins the lottery, it's a done deal. It will be across the country beyond a shadow of a doubt. It is a matter of our reach being extended as we develop our partnerships. And it is our goal. And I believe everyone on our team feels the same way. We do want it across every country. I'm sorry, well, yes, every country, but every part of our nation, every waterway, to give a representation for what has either not been discussed, revealed, or has been misrepresented. And so the plan is to continue building strategic partnerships. Some of those partnerships might even be watching right now.
It could be. Okay, one more from Carol, who I know lives in our neighborhood. How can this project be used to generate dialogue?
Can I? Okay, cool. So here's the situation. Images offer an opportunity, and the more exposure that you have to either webinars or some of the material or aspects of the AR that will be available, there are different things that will provide prompts, as well as our social media presence. If you look on Instagram at anything that the Dykeman Farmhouse Museum has put out there, I was here and beyond, as well as our Facebook page and Instagram, then you'll have the ability to have educated conversations and also many talking points. It only takes one sentence, and it only takes asking one question. What do you think this represents? Why is this important? What do you think they were feeling or thinking?
Marshall, I was just going to add on to that, man. Like, having these in various cities, our plan is to, if you're familiar with it, and if you've been to the Dykeman and you've experienced it, and then you're traveling with family to St. Louis, and we have an exhibit in St. Louis, you'll be notified through the application, and you'll be able then to take that person to where that experience is, to continue the education in other areas. So the spiderweb just continues to grow. And so it is about having that dialogue, but giving everyone the opportunity to have it.
That's a great point. Thank you. The only other thing I wanted to add, since we're kind of nearing the end of this, is just I thought it might be great if any one of you would like to talk a little bit about kind of what's next, or kind of how you envision the relationship between the I Was Here project and the Dykeman Farmhouse Museum evolving.
So I was just sitting here trying not to be a question hog, to be honest with you. But I will say it's exciting. It is so exciting, especially since one of our team members comes from Inwood. And so as we're moving forward, there are several things being considered, but one thing that I can tell you is on its way is an I Was Here app experience for Inwood and the surrounding area. It's going to be impactful. I wish I could say more, but I feel like one of those Marvel stars who they're asking in an interview about the movie and you can't really say it, and the producers like staring at them going, don't say a word. So there's a lot being developed, and it will all be to help benefit the community, get the word out, and create and shift a new American commemorative landscape.
Thank you. This is not really a question, but I just wanted to add one comment that someone just wrote that says there's a new project being launched here in Baltimore to reimagine an old plantation house, telling the stories of the enslaved people who were there from the 1700s. I can see I Was Here being addition to the storytelling that the organizers are beginning to think about. The property is called Mount Clair. So just wanted to let you know in case you didn't see that in the Q&A.
Excellent.
Wonderful. All right, well, thank you so much to all of you. This was a really fantastic and a very moving discussion. I hope that everyone who attended enjoyed the talk. Please consider making a donation to enable us to continue to offer free public programming. Gifts in any amount are appreciated. I'd like to remind you also that this is the second of 5 lectures in our Talking About Race Matters Join the Conversation series. Join us here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Zoom. Be sure to register through the links in the chat and follow us on social media for updates. We will see you here next week, September 8th at 6 p.m. for Markers on the Land, Slavery, Commemoration, and the History of Africans in Northern Manhattan with Dr. Robert Snyder, Peggy King-Yorda, Dr. Andrea Mosterman, and Richard Tomzak. Thank you so much for joining us and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.